Hi students, last video from me is about the paper. Now, as I said, there are 3 longer texts assigned for this course. All Quiet on the Western Front, Man's Search for Meaning, and Animal Farm. And each of you has to write a paper on one of them. But you don't have to write 3 papers, you just have to write the one paper. And I've just pulled up All Quiet on the Western Front here because it's the first one. Now you can see once again that I've made the rubric available. So I encourage you to study the rubric, to look at the rubric, to think about how your paper is matching up to the rubric. But in, I think it's week 3, I've given you an assignment of grading some sample papers using the same rubric. And I talk a little more about the rubric in greater detail there. So I'm not going to go through that at the moment. But the rubric is available for you to look at. Here, I'm going to talk a little more about the structure of the paper. This is a 3 to 4 page paper in which you analyze a primary source, you use that as your focal point, and you talk about what it teaches us about World War I. What can we learn about World War I based on that we wouldn't learn from reading a textbook? From reading this primary source about what it was like to be there at the time. And what can we move forward from that to say about this society as a whole? For this, it says, what does this source teach us about World War I? But for Man's Search for Meaning, what does this source teach us about World War II? For the Animal Farm, what does this source teach us about revolution during the 20th century? And so here is the outline that I want you to follow, set out as precisely as I can. Of course, everyone's paper will be a little bit different, but I'm just trying to give you a firm outline so you know what I'm looking for here. First page, first paragraph, I want you to talk about the author, and I want you to talk about their background, and to give kind of an overview of what the source is about. And then at the end of that, to give your thesis. So this source was written by such and such an author from such and such a background that talks about this particular war, and then you come to your thesis and you make your argument. When we look at this particular source, it teaches us such and such about World War I in this case. And I've got a writing assignment later on in the course that explains how to do a thesis. It's kind of complex, but so that's where you put the thesis. Then in the second paragraph of the first page, you talk about what I call the macro context of the source. What are the events that are taking place at the time that this source was written? And how do they support your overarching argument about the source? How do they influence what's going on in the source? So for this example, you would probably talk about World War I, how World War I is going on, what are the particular aspects of World War I that influence All Quiet on the Western Front. And then on the second page, the first paragraph of the second page, you talk about what I call the micro context of the source. What are the places and events that are referenced in the source itself? And how do they further support your argument? How do they layer in another strand to connect this text with a big historical event like World War I? How do the different places and events that are referenced in the source, how do they help connect the two? And then for the second half of the second page and the whole of the third page, I want you to bring out different themes in the source. So this doesn't mean a synopsis of the source. This doesn't mean tell me what happened in the source. This means what ideas is the author consistently emphasizing in different contexts throughout the source. What 2 at minimum, 3 at the most ideas does the author emphasize? And then you come to the last page and you talk about the significance of the source. Why? And this is kind of where you explain your thesis based on what you already know. And so I've used a medieval example here from 1150. If we know that medieval men and women thought this because these were some of the themes that the author has emphasized in this text, and we know that these events were going on at the time, so this is the context part of your paper. What does that tell us about what this society was like? So this isn't something where you can read the source and then you're kind of just copying stuff out of the source. This is the sort of assignment that you have to think for a while about the argument that you're going to make. You're going to have to think about the source for a while and how it connects to a broader argument. So I hope this is helpful. Again, of course, always remember to use footnotes. But so I'm gonna have you pick which book you're writing about sometime in this first week, and then I encourage you to read it ahead of time. To read it ahead of time and give yourself some time to think about your argument and to plan your paper before you write it.